Imagine walking into ancient Egypt expecting buff gods, golden abs, and square-jawed pharaohs. And instead you get a dude who looks like a character rejected from The Sims for having too many sliders maxed out. Meet Akhenaten, the pharaoh who looked like someone tried to sculpt a human from memory, using a spoon. We're talking an elongated skull, spidery limbs, hips like a fertility idol, and a face that says, "I might be part lizard, but in a divine way." Now, ancient Egyptian art was basically the same for 1,000 years. Every king looked like a superhero, even if they were 80 years old and couldn't lift a brick. But then Akhenaten shows up like, "Yeah, no thanks. I want you to carve me exactly how I look after 3 hours of bad sleep and an allergic reaction." And here's the thing. People did. Artists suddenly tossed out centuries of rigid canon and started carving this noodle-bodied royal exactly as he looked or wanted to look. Soft, strange, almost alien. Why? Well, maybe he really looked like that. Some people think he had Marfan syndrome, a real genetic disorder that can give you long limbs, narrow features, and sometimes the bone structure of a haunted cello. Others say hormonal imbalances or genetic quirks from royal inbreeding. Yum. But there's one problem: we've never found Akhenaten's confirmed mummy. So all these diagnoses, based on statues. Basically, it's like trying to diagnose a celebrity by their wax figure at Madame Tussauds. Solid science, folks. Or plot twist, maybe he didn't have a syndrome. Maybe he had a strategy. If your religion says you're the only dude on Earth who can talk to the sun, maybe you want to look a little unearthly. Because apparently, being human was too basic. You know how some people won't shut up about being spiritual but not religious? Akhenaten was like that, but with full state funding and absolute power. Instead of worshipping the entire pantheon of Egyptian gods, which, let's be honest, had a god for everything from death to dung beetles, Akhenaten rolled in and said, "Nope, just one god, and it's the sun, specifically the disk part. That's right, we're praying to a circle now." He called it Aten, and to make things extra fun, he declared himself the only person who could talk to it. Not priests, not regular folks. Just him. Imagine being the pharaoh and also the divine IT help desk for sunlight. No wonder he needed a glow-up. Here's where it gets even weirder: the art. Oh, the art. Gone were the stoic statues of pharaohs sitting like they had mild back pain and eternal wisdom. In the Amarna period, named after the capital city Akhenaten built just for Aten, the art suddenly became emotional, human. Kind of sweet if you're into that. You see the royal family cuddling, holding babies, being affectionate. It's like someone switched the filter from eternal god king to quirky indie dad. One famous carving even shows Akhenaten kissing his daughter, which in Egyptian art is basically the equivalent of posting a crying selfie. Unheard of. So here's a guy who built an entire city for his new sun religion, made all his art personal and weirdly intimate, and reshaped the state religion to center around himself and his one-on-one chats with a glowing disc in the sky. Which, when you put it that way, is kind of a power move. Basically, "Hi, I'm your king, also your priest, also your son's bestie, and yes, I am shaped like a space dolphin. Thanks for noticing." Okay, let's take a second and ask a brutally honest question. What kind of ruler tells his kingdom, "Carve me like a walking fever dream"? Answer: the kind who's either completely delusional or a marketing genius. See, Akhenaten's body in those statues wasn't just weird, it was consistently weird. Long face? Check. Puffy lips? Check. Baby bump? Absolutely. Spaghetti arms and childbearing hips? Every single time. Even the royal daughters looked like they'd been cloned from the same alien mold. Which suggests one thing: this wasn't an accident. It wasn't an artist's flub. It was intentional. Like if you told your court sculptors, "Hey, make me look like I'm halfway through transforming into a divine jellyfish," but like elegant. This wasn't just about aesthetics. This was about identity. Akhenaten wasn't trying to fit in. He was trying to stand outside humanity, hovering slightly above it with a holy halo and maybe some weird humming noises. By exaggerating his body, he made himself something else. A hybrid. A symbol, half god, half man, half enigma. Yes, that's 3 halves. Don't worry about it. And here's the twist: it actually worked. For a while, people worshipped Aten, They obeyed Akhenaten. They painted sun rays with little hands reaching down from the sky, like divine jazz fingers blessing the royal family. In a way, it was kind of brilliant. If your god can't be seen and you claim to be the only one who knows that God, well, the more different you look from everyone else, the more believable it is. Normal people don't talk to space discs. But you're shaped like a melted candle. Of course you have a direct line to the divine. And suddenly, the grotesque becomes sacred. Let's get the obvious one out of the way. Was Akhenaten an alien? No, seriously, there's an entire internet subculture that genuinely believes he was. And when you look at the evidence, by which we mean statues and vibes, you kind of get it. Because if you were designing an alien character for a sci-fi movie, tall, lanky, big head, haunting eyes, worships a sun disk, casually claims to be the voice of light, you'd basically get Akhenaten. All that's missing is a spaceship and a slow-motion entrance sound. The ancient astronaut crowd has had a field day with this. They say his elongated skull wasn't a result of inbreeding or Marfan syndrome. It's because he was a visitor, a celestial diplomat, an ambassador from the galactic HOA sent to check on our weird little planet and maybe teach us about solar theology. And because logic is optional on the internet, these theories go deeper. Aten, the sun god he worshipped, wasn't a god at all. It was a ship. The sun disk was actually a hovering craft, sending down energy beams with tiny hands to communicate with its chosen agent on Earth, our boy Akhenaten. Sure, it's completely unsupported by mainstream archaeology. Sure, we have 0 alien bones in Amarna, but when your art style is space elf mid-metamorphosis, people are going to ask questions. And what really fuels this whole narrative is what happened after his death. A full-on historical erasure campaign, statues smashed, names chiseled off walls, city abandoned. It's like someone tried to scrub him from time itself. Why? Because he was a heretic? Or because he was never supposed to be here in the first place? Aliens, man. They ruin dinner parties and ancient Egypt in equal measure. So imagine this. You're the ruler of the most powerful civilization in the ancient world, and instead of upgrading the capital like a normal despot, you build a brand new city in the middle of the desert, from scratch. Because that's what Akhenaten did. He left Thebes, a fully functioning religious hub, and said, "Nah, I need more sunlight and less competition." So he picked a spot no one wanted, called it Akhetaten, and said, "This will be my holy HQ. Thanks." And the place was wild, no temples to other gods, no sneaky priests in jackal masks. Just one god, Aten, with rays that end in tiny jazz hand fingers, and a layout that basically screamed, "Let the sunshine in." Amarna was all open courtyards, minimal shadows, and visibility everywhere, like the first open-plan office, except instead of emails, you were expected to vibe with the literal sun. Akhenaten didn't just change religion. He redesigned space itself to worship his glowing sky friend. Art in this city was different too, like emotionally different. You've got statues showing Akhenaten feeding his kids, kissing his wife, relaxing under those divine sunbeams. It's all very influencer family vacation if the influencer had an elongated skull and a god complex. Actually, especially if. But then, just as fast as it appeared, it was gone. After Akhenaten died, the city was abandoned like last season's TikTok trend. People went back to Thebes. The temples were closed. Aten got ghosted. It's like Amarna never happened. Why? Because apparently, being a sun-worshipping alien-shaped revolutionary is not great for long-term policy. But you've got to admire the energy. I'm so different. I need an entire city just to process how divine I am. Classic main character syndrome on a cosmic scale. Okay, so here's a fun psychological exercise. What's worse than being hated? Being erased. And that's exactly what happened to Akhenaten. After his death, Egypt didn't just roll its eyes and move on. No, they went full scorched earth on this guy's legacy. They smashed his statues, dismantled his temples, chiseled his name off monuments like they were editing history with a jackhammer. They didn't even just strike his name, they went full ghost mode. In the official king lists, there's just a gap, like a monarch-shaped hole where the weirdest thing that ever happened to Egypt used to be. Imagine if the US just skipped from Lincoln to Grant and nobody mentioned the Civil War. Yeah, that kind of denial. Why the overkill? Well, it might have been because Akhenaten's entire reign was basically one long middle finger to 1,000 years of religious tradition. The priests, who used to have power, suddenly had none. The gods they worshipped were cancelled in favor of a literal orb, and the whole country was forced to pretend that sunlight was now sentient. So once he died, the backlash wasn't gentle. It was surgical with sledgehammers. But here's where the psychology kicks in. Humans don't tend to erase boring things. We erase things that threaten us, scare us, or make us question everything. It's like the collective brain of ancient Egypt got a taste of cognitive dissonance and went, nope, delete the glitch, which raises a spicy question. Was Akhenaten just annoying? Or was he onto something too real? Because if your legacy gets nuked that hard, maybe you weren't wrong. Maybe you were just way ahead of your time. Or, not from time at all. Enter Tutankhamun, the most famous pharaoh with the worst luck in the genetics department. You know him, gold mask, teen ruler, cursed tomb, the usual. But here's the kicker. He was probably Akhenaten's son. And boy, did he inherit the family vibes. Tutankhamun's body was a bit of a mess. Clubfoot, malformed spine, cleft palate, possible bone disease, and the walking energy of someone who should have definitely sat down more often. Oh, and DNA analysis? It basically screamed royal inbreeding alert. His parents were likely siblings. Romantic. Now, this raises a very juicy, very uncomfortable question. Was the royal family deliberately trying to preserve some kind of divine bloodline? Like, were they going full sci-fi, trying to maintain some rare, otherworldly trait that they believed made them closer to the gods? Or whatever the sun disk equivalent of a god is? It's not unheard of. Ancient monarchies loved the idea of divine right. But this wasn't just about political power. The physical forms of Akhenaten and Tutankhamun were so strange, so far from normal, it makes you wonder if they were selectively breeding to stay that way. To protect a biological identity that wasn't quite human? Like, hey, our family tree looks like a pretzel, but don't worry. We glow in the dark and talk to the sky. It's either a tragic medical case study or the plot of a very confusing prequel to Arrival. Maybe both. Tutankhamun reversed most of his dad's reforms, ditched Aten, moved back to Thebes, and played it safe. And still, he didn't last long. He died in his teens, full of ailments, buried in a rush, and discovered centuries later with more curses than a season finale of Supernatural. So if Akhenaten started something, it didn't exactly end well. But it sure left a trail of medical mysteries and golden masks behind. Here's where things get existential. Because what if Akhenaten's whole freaky appearance wasn't about health or ego, but philosophy? Let's say you're the leader of an empire built on tradition, repetition, and glorified dog-headed gods. You want to change that. No, you want to obliterate it. You want people to see you and think, this man is not one of us, but something bigger, weirder, brighter. So you become the in-between. Not fully man, not fully divine, something liminal. An amphibious deity walking among mortals, like if a jellyfish became sentient and decided to run a country. The art, the city, the god with the hand-raise, none of it was random. Akhenaten's form wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was an ideology sculpted in stone. The distortion of his body was a metaphor. I don't belong to this world the way you do. He wasn't trying to be perfect, he was trying to be impossible. And maybe that's why his story sticks with us. Not because he was erased, or because his kids were shaped like coat hangers, but because he did something most leaders never dare. He made himself look monstrous to make a point. What point? That divinity is strange, that truth is uncomfortable. That if God really did walk among men, he might not look like a six-packed hero with eyeliner and a lion throne. He might look like Akhenaten. Soft, long, alien, unsettling. Or maybe, and this is the real mind-bender, he was trolling the entire empire, like some ancient performance artist with divine backing. Either way, we're still talking about him. And in a world full of forgotten kings and dust-covered gods, being remembered for being weird might be the most powerful legacy of all.